Okay, let's try this. All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Okay, so first of all, big shkoyach and shout out to Rihanna for initiating and asking to learn my favorite, one of my probably my favorite sefer of all time. And it was an honor to give it to you this summer because it carries a lot of weight, and Mirza Shemi put on a lot of miles into it. So we're actually going to skip everything in the introduction in the Akdama because that is really as it calls, it is a discussion with teachers and parents. You guys are neither. So there's no point in going into that. But I'm going to give an overview as to what this Sefer is, why I think it's so powerful, and a couple of just eitzas to be successful in learning Bigadol as a whole. So this is written by Rav Kloinimus Kalamis Shapiro, also known as the Rebbe of Piazetzna, the Piazetzna Rebbe. He unfortunately was killed in the Holocaust, and spent the last few years of his life in the Warsaw Ghetto, where he wrote a series of lectures that were hidden and then discovered, and translated into the book called the Eish Kodesh. He's also referred to as the Eish Kodesh, as many people are. Sometimes they are referred to as the work, as their svarim that they write. So he's known as the Eish Kodesh. There's a famous shul in New York called the Eish Kodesh, which carries a lot of his messaging and messages of Chassidus. So he was a Chassidish Rav, and I particularly like his writings. I like the way that he talks for a bunch of reasons. Number one is he was known to be somebody who cared a lot about teenagers, about his Talmidim, right? The ones, this Bachrim who he had in his yeshiva. He believed that they were the future, as I do. I connect with that idea. You can work with any age group, and I think teenagers are where they're at, where it's at, because that's where you're at. That's where you're at that pivotal moment, that pivotal point in your life where you're basically going to set up the direction in your life of where you're ultimately going to end up. And I think that that's probably the best place to catch a person before they've begun their journey or before they've even started their journey. Famously, he would make space at his tish, right? Hasidish Ravs, Hasidish Rebbeim would have these tish, these tables where on Friday night, or even during the week, if there was a reason for it, if there was an event, and he would always save space. And typically, he would always have the most prestigious people, and the kids would be in the back. He would always make space up front for his bacher and for those teenagers up front. So he connected very much to that, and he also blends, which I think beautifully, two different worlds in a sense. He was Hasidish, so he is latent with Hasidus, with the depth behind everything. If you're familiar with Hasidus, Hasidus is uncovering the beauty. Originally it was a development from the Kabbalists, from Kabbalah, but it puts emphasis on the reasons why behind things, the depth and the beauty. And at the end of the day, there's two fundamental principles when it comes to Hasidus. One is that every single person has access to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every person has access to Hashem. You don't need a 4-point GPO to have a relationship with Hashem. You don't need to be even a Torah scholar. Any person can connect with Hashem because every person has a neshama inside of themselves, and that neshama is a piece of Hashem, and therefore they're a lot closer than they think they are, or other people might perceive them to be. Another element of Hasidus is that every small action, every small mitzvah has infinite amount of power and kedusha. There's no such thing as a small mitzvah. Every little thing that we do is tended to be celebrated. So Hasidus is also a philosophy. It's not just a lifestyle; it's also a philosophy. On the other end of that spectrum, you would say, not really so much fair to say it's a duality there. But the concept of the Musar movement, Rav Yisrael Salanter, who created the Musar movement, which really is taken helm in the yeshivish community for the most part. Everybody's into Musar, but they've really the ones who have made it a focal point of their Seder, of their day-to-day. And Musar is basically the constructive criticism one gives to themselves or they hear from their Rebbe. It's the messaging that they can do better. It's the messaging that what you've done is great, yeah, but there's more to be done, and the work is never over. And why are you slacking? So these are typically two somewhat opposing ideologies. Somebody does very little in their Judaism. Of course, that should be celebrated, right? You look at Chabad, who are their Hasidim, right? They put on tefillin on one guy in the mall, and that's like makes everything worth it. That's the highest achievement of all time. Musar perspective would say like you're putting on tefillin. just one time. That's it. You can't find another day to put on tefillin. So these are two kind of opposing ideologies, and yet I think he remarkably works them into his sefer in a very beautiful way. There are times where he's like, "You can do this. You are so unbelievably special," and there's other times where he turns around and says, "How are you going to slack off? What are you going to say to God after 120 when you're looking him in the face?" So I like the fact that he blends both because I connect to both philosophies, and I think he does an excellent job at that. And at the end of the day, he lived a very difficult life, and you can see that when he's in his writing, when I read it for the first time, and you'll see this as well, that he's not talking about concepts and theories, he's speaking directly to the reader. And there's so many times where when you look at a piece of art, you can sort of see the artist, you can learn about the artist, you can get a sense of who they are based on their art. I think similarly, when you read someone's work, their Torah that they put together, you could also get a sense of who they were. And he talks directly to you, directly to the Jewish teenager, to the Jewish youth. And when I read it, I felt like he was speaking directly to me, and it clocked me repeatedly over and over again. It's only 13 chapters. I hope by the end of the year we can actually get to it. I've only once in my life finished it with other people. I finished it myself, but with other people because it's long, and I tend to go on tangents and rants. So it's hard to cover ground, but it's not a very long book. But chapter 13 was completely life-changing. I found it when I was 22 years old, when I was back in Israel studying in between my undergrad. So, and there's moments in the book where his writing is almost, it's poetry. It's like poetic, especially when he talks about tefillah, prayer, and he gives examples of what they are. And you just feel it. You feel it when he's talking that it's really, really beautiful. And I think it paints a picture of what our tefillah could be if we were able to tap into it as well. So what is the purpose of the book? The purpose of the book was, he lived at a certain time. People think that they have this misconception that before World War II, before the Holocaust, that life in Europe was just amazing for the Jews. Life was not amazing for the Jews. And I don't mean just because of anti-Semitism. I mean the status and the state of the Jewish people. The state of the Jewish people were not great at all. And again, this is not my idea. This is, to quote Rav Shimshon Pincus, that, what happened in Eastern Europe might have saved the Jewish people, might have saved Klal Yisrael, because in the course in that they were going in, it could very well be that there would have been no Jewish people if World War II didn't even happen. You had the overwhelming majority of Jews who were giving up their Judaism, who were moving towards secularism, who started a hardcore and legitimate movement to delegitimize authentic Torah Judaism and turn it into basically a cultural ornament that you occasionally wore around for fun. But they were trying to uproot Torah values in a serious way. The idea of Zionism, the idea that we were going to go back to Eretz Yisrael and build the Beis Hamikdash. No, they were going to call temples. They started calling their shuls temples because those were the new Batei Hamikdash. You didn't need Yerushalayim anymore. You had Berlin. Getting rid of kosher food, getting rid of ritual slaughter. I mean, there was a tremendous movement from within the Jewish people, and it was the predominant movement at the time. And the other Jews were very insular. They were very shtetl based. They were so polarized that these two factions had basically nothing to do with each other. And Torah learning was looked at as something that was horrible, derogatory. People would spit at anybody, would walk around, who took their Torah learning serious. And it was very insular, it was very small. And we were not in a good state. We were not unified. And as well, the Hasidus movement came around at a time 250 years ago to try to put fire and life back into Judaism. Judaism was becoming, for those who were what we would consider very religious, very frum, was becoming very robotic. It lost its flavor, it lost its light, and the secular movement had unbelievable traction. So we were not in a great place whatsoever. When the Piazetzner looked around, he said, okay, the Jewish children are the future. How do I give, right? Let's say there's two types, right? There's one is a Jew who totally lost their Judaism and they were so disconnected and off. If I were to find one of these kids, how would I give them a roadmap to understand what it means to be a Jew? Even for the ones that sit and learn, even for my own Bachrim, how do I give them a roadmap to be the best Jew they can be and essentially the best person that they can be? And I find that, I mean, the title is Chovas Hatalmidim, the student's obligation. Basically, when he talks about student, he means student of life, not just student in yeshiva. Student of life, a Jewish child, right? What is our obligation? What are we meant to do? It's a short, very to the point of how a person goes about their growth, the philosophies and the strategies on how to overcome the weaker sides of themselves and become the best that they can be. And he does it in such a beautiful way. And his audience, his target audience is you guys ultimately. So this is kind of a survival mode. If you had Jews who like were totally disconnected from Judaism, or even those who were raised Jewish and don't really have a good understanding why, I think this is a manual and a roadmap to becoming and developing yourself into the greatest Jew that you possibly can be. And I love it, and I think it's unbelievable. And hopefully you'll see that for yourself. So before we dive in, just three tips that I always start with. Typically, I would say it in person, but here we are virtual for the time being. The three tips that I think that contributes to successful learning. The first one the first one is consistency. Consistency in learning. Very similar to a person that they go to the gym, that if you go to the gym once every 3 weeks and you do your workout, you are not going to see any results. It's not going to do anything for you. But when you go consistently every day or whatever it is, whatever your routine is, but you go consistently and you don't miss a day, even though the times that you feel, right, that you're kind of like not into it, but you push yourself to stay consistent. And it's kind of hard. Like if you're in yeshiva or you're in seminary, okay, you're learning every single morning, every day. It's different. Here, we're only be learning once a week, but even so, that if a person sort of comes in and comes, pops in and out, the learning will not have the effect that it's supposed to have, which is the learning is supposed to change your life. The learning is supposed to give you power to be able to actually implement and grow as a person and change your life. And consistency is needed. Consistency is the key to successful growth. So you want to be successful learning, it's consistency. If a person is consistent, the learning that they do in 3 months from now is 100 times more powerful than it is on day one, similar to the workout analogy. So that's the first thing. The second piece is, which is also going to be very difficult to do, is limiting distractions. The way that our mind works, the way that that social media has conditioned our minds to work, we get distracted very easy, being bored and being, the second our phone pings, it's like our brain goes to a million different places. It's very hard in the course of life to be able to compartmentalize and make that shift of, okay, social, school, boom, stop, focus in my Torah learning, and then turn it back on afterwards. Again, if somebody was in a Makam Torah, if they were in a Torah institution, then limiting distractions for sure is going to be so important. But if you're learning on your phone, if you're learning on your computer, it's important to not have your phone within arm's reach. It's important to not have it connected to your laptop where your texts are coming in, because that can take away from a person's focus. And again, one of the tremendous benefits of TJJ vis-a-vis learning during the year is that after you learn something that could potentially change your life, now you have the time and space to reflect, to decompress, to talk to an advisor about it or your friend, or sit on the rooftop in Ma'alot and like think about life. Here, it's very hard. The second you turn it off, you got to go right back to the test. So it makes it harder for you to be able to be able to limit, get into it, but limiting distractions will be helpful. And the third and final tip is to write, as I see Haley is already writing. So kudos to you to write it
Look
down.
how cool. Pause. Look how cool. I got for like for like
Okay, you're
sparring
writing on something.
for like sparring that like when I like
Is it
writing
the
them.
transparent ones?
Yeah, I got like these and you like put it in the book so you don't ruin the book. But like you can like put it over
And
like
you can write
words
on it. Yeah, I
and you
have one
write
of
on it.
these.
Oh,
These,
very cool.
right?
It doesn't ruin the book.
Yeah.
Even honestly, you could tat up your book also. Why
Yeah,
not?
but like some books like I like to like give to other people and finish it. Like
Wait,
so I like
Avi, you're filming this, right?
This,
Because I have a
yes.
teacher Zoom at
Yeah,
9.
yeah, I'm
Middle
filming it. I'm
school.
gonna post on the chat afterwards, so that way, in case anybody misses a week. But Reed, do not give away that book.
KK.
Are you were gonna give away this? Are
No,
you
I wasn't gonna get like other. I said other books, like
the other
because then
books?
I
It's fine.
like I write in it, and then like if someone doesn't want like move
It's
it
very
or something.
awkward when like someone like you find a book on someone's shelf and there's like a personal letter written in the cover to somebody else. Like, and you're like, how did I get this? Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a good thing I didn't write in that book. Anyway, um, what was it? Oh, writing down. So the reason why writing it down just in general is really good. First of all, just LP psychology. Um, when you write something down, you're internalizing it more. It's
Remember
much
it.
easier. You what?
You remember it.
Remember it.
Right, you remember it more. You're putting it into your you're putting it into your own words. So you're writing it down. It gets etched into your brain a lot more. But also in a spiritual sense. One of the reasons we're in Elul now, going into Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Simei Teshuvah, Yom Kippur. One of the elements of Teshuvah is a concept of vidui. And in order to do vidui, which is the confession part of Teshuvah, if you're familiar, you have to verbalize. You have to say it out loud. And the reason is because if a person only thinks of these things and they don't verbalize it, then it's staying in the realm of machshava, of the thought, and it's not coming into the world of maseh, of what you do. And when a person says, people make a big deal like, oh, you said it. We were all thinking it, but you said it. When you say something, it brings it into life. So when you have a lot of thoughts and different things going on in your head and you write it down, you're taking it out of the realm of thought and you're bringing it into the realm of reality. You're actualizing, you're making it real. And I think that also helps be able to stick and internalize. And at the end of the day, you want to have something to show for it. Years will go by and you'll all the things that you learn that could potentially change your life will go in one ear and out the other. Give it a couple of months, you'll forget about it. But you have it written down. You can do chazara. You can open up your books. You can look down. You can highlight and put a star and say like, got to remember. If I'm just going to flip through my notes to remember the basic points, I know what I underlined. I know what I highlighted. Whatever it is, that's the best way. And I do that with my safer as well. Oh, I have a bunch of different. I have a lot of books from people who have written in them, so I have other people's notes also. But they're typically notes that I gave them. So. They make me familiar. You see this? Little stuff. It's very cool.
Leia showed me her version of this book on like, oh, she was telling me on TGA because she was like, this is my favorite book, blah, blah, blah. Then I went to her house and she's like, wait here. She brings me the book. She's like, look through it.
It's
I
falling
told you
apart.
yeah, literally.
She said it's her favorite book.
Yeah. Like one of her favorite books.
Sensei, young grasshopper, taught her well. All right. So the introduction, the akdama that he talks about is really for parents and teachers. But chapter 1, we'll do.
Okay, wait. I don't wanna. I'm gonna listen to chapter 1 after. I have
Yeah,
few minutes.
I'm only going to do.
Have fun, Haley.
I'm only going to do a couple of paragraphs, and then because it's a soft launch today.
Okay.
Call to.
Thank you. Bye. I'll listen to it after.
You got it. Okay. So there's an Eitan Katz song, this line, which really it's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful line, and it is really, really powerful. It starts off, Ashrecha no Yisrael, v'ashrech elkecha. Now I'm going to do the book obviously in English. My Hebrew is not excellent like that, and it would also take up a lot more time. So I think the content is more important than just working on that skill. So I'm going to do it in English, but there's certain times where I'll point to the Hebrew because I think that, like the word ashrecha, for example, like ashrei, praise. There's no the English translation doesn't do it justice. Have you ever heard anybody like in Israel go like ashrecha? Like it's like it's not just praise. It's like I don't know, whatever. There's certain words in like Hebrew that you just can't translate because they don't really hit the crux. Okay, anyway.
I thought.
Yeah. Ashrecha no Yisrael v'ashrecha. How fortunate are you, the Jewish people, the Nar Yisrael, the young Jewish people, v'ashrecha, and your portion. How unbelievably fortunate you are that you have your portion, which is what? As a Torah or that you have the Torah. And fortunate is your portion, for you have been given the privilege of learning Torah, which is the light of Hashem, who is elevated levels of being one of his loved ones for whom he delights. How fortunate are you that you were born as a Jew, that you were born into this world, and that your chelek, your portion, right? A lot of people don't really stop and think. We learned about this summer what it means to be a Jew. But the reality is, what makes us as Jewish people different than the Umas Ha'olam, the other nations of the world? What is it that makes us different? Well, think about it. When did we become the Jewish people? It was when Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, took us out of Egypt, brought us to Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and then what happened there? Right? You entered
Torah.
the Torah. You entered, and then you left. The only thing that made us the Jewish people, essentially, no, literally, the only thing that made us the Jewish people was the giving of the Torah. Outside of that event, what makes us Jewish? Right? So it doesn't matter where a person is holding in their own journey or their own religious growth. That's irrelevant to the reality that without Torah, there is no Jewish identity. Because that's what makes you a Jew. That's what made you a Jew. So fortunate chelkecha, fortunate is your portion, your lot, meaning how lucky are you that you had received the Torah. The heavenly angels both envy and respect you. The seraphim, which is a different type of angel, are amazed by you and honor you. The heavens above and the earth below rejoice and even subjugate themselves to you, and they ask, each other, who is this young man or woman when he learns Torah, when he davens, when he's connecting, when he's in a state of devekus with Hashem, an attachment to Hashem. The fire of holiness emits from his mouth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is glorified and exalts him before the myriad angels and the holy ones. Basically, what he's saying is that, do you get it? Do you get how special and unbelievable, how lucky you are for the fact that you're Jewish? You know, in the interview, a lot of time, one of my lines that I'll drop on someone, I'll say like, you know, because it's my experience, like you wake up every morning, I wake up every morning, go to sleep every night thanking Hashem that I'm Jewish. And if you're not absolutely feeling the same way, then you're missing something. You don't realize how special you are. And that's probably one of the problems, if not the problem, of modern Jewish, you know, Jewish teens today, is that they don't realize how special and unique they actually are. What he's pointing out is not only how lucky you are, which he's going to get into why, you know, even though he touched on it already in this paragraph, but how lucky and fortunate you are. Even what is above us and below us praises us for it, right? We are not angels. Angels who don't have Yetzer who, you know, are programmed to serve Hashem, who don't have the desire to do otherwise. And the not even just animal and plant life, you're talking about even the earth, the heavens and the like inanimate objects, right? The lowest of the low, who also, like the angels, don't have that free will. They don't have the ability to go against what they were programmed to do. Both of them are praising because the happy medium is the human being, you know, us in the middle, and us being the Mamlechas Kohanim, the kingdom of priests of the nations of the world. They are looking at it and saying, "Oh my God, look how powerful it is!" You know, Hashem didn't give everything He created in creation, everything from the animals to the earth to the suns, the star, the moon. Everything was there as a tool for us, the Jewish people, and everything that's above. He didn't give the Torah to the angels because I don't want a nation of robots. I gave it to you, the Jewish people. So when you're engaging in Torah learning and davening and dvekus with Hashem, how unbelievable is that? How even, you know, what's above and below us are praising us. By the way, I would like to use different words here and there. If you don't know the translation of a word, just call me out on it. Say like, what does that mean? I'll try to translate it, but I want to improve your. I want you to be a contender with Liat. You know, I want you to
My
go ahead.
from vocab.
Hear what? Yeah, you know, I don't know where she gets it from, but like,
Liat's like up there. She's
I know
like,
she is. She's very. It's very impressive. So we're gonna try to get you up to that point where you can
all
contend
right,
in
I'll
a
let her
minute.
know.
Um, Hashem is happy with you, and so you should be happy and joyous too over having achieved such fortune and success. He's saying that just at a bare minimum, the fact that you can recognize that you're
Wait,
Jewish,
mom.
what?
Bare minimum.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're probably gonna end up there just because of that.
Hey.
Um, that just the fact that you're Jewish in and of itself, how unbelievably lucky are you? Now, before I even explain what that is, you know, we live in a generation that struggles immensely with self-esteem, with self-image, the way that people view themselves, right? I don't get the sense that you struggle with that, but self-esteem is something that's very hard to come by. People are constantly looking in the wrong places. They're looking externally for their validation, typically from strangers on social media, as opposed to looking internally where it does belong. Now, here is the beautiful secret that people don't realize about self-esteem. When you're Jewish, when you're born a Jew, the fact you're special just because of who you are. And when a person understands that they're Jewish and they understand what it means to be a Jew, then that can fill them with a sense of worth. Even if they think that they as an individual are worthless, that doesn't even enter the conversation after a person understands that their worth comes in the context of the fact that they're Jewish. As
We
in
talked
before,
about that, like on
right? Let's
TJJ, you said.
let's yeah.
Oh, that you were saying like I forgot someone asked you like how is it like against like the Torah to like not to have a low self-esteem or to like whatever, and you're like literally like the opposite. Like how could you say like, oh, I'm not, like people would say like I'm not, like, contradicting, like how can I say I'm not worthy? How can I say all this when literally like
You
Hashem
can't.
chose you to like do all this stuff and like
You can't. As in, right, you're born. If you're born into royalty, you're special by default, right? Again, you can have no redeeming qualities. You can be ugly, unattractive. You can be annoying to people. You can be dumb. You can be have no, you know, talents and hobbies whatsoever, and yet still, you're a Jew. So you're special. So that has to be the premise before you even enter into the conversation about what makes you unique as an individual, what makes you special, right? So that's what he's saying. Do you think it's, and now he's going to dive into exactly, you know, what does it mean to be a Jew? Do you think it's possible for someone to see the face of the king and not be happy and joyful about it? What does he mean, see the face of the king? Is it conceivable that HaKadosh Baruch Hu to whisper his secrets to somebody by teaching him his Torah without that person being accused of immaturity and being held accountable for not rejoicing in kind? Hashem gave us the Torah and it's only for us, right? We're different than the non-Jews in that sense. Hashem gave us the Torah. That's a gift to us. Non-Jews are not privy to go learn. It's not a scholarly document. It was given to us. It is for us. He gave us that. Are we not supposed to be as excited and ecstatic about it? But we have to understand what that means. It's seeing the king face to face. As we say, when you daven, you're talking to Hashem. When you learn Torah, he's talking to you. That the bridge that connects us with Hashem is the Torah. Because when we had that partnership at Har Sinai, when we entered into a marriage, at that point with God, it was the Torah that connected the two of us. And when we delve into the Torah, that is us doing the action of connectivity when it comes to Hashem. It gives us direction to understand how he wants us to serve him, right? So that's what it does. You have access, close access to Hashem. So, the analogy I use is like, think of like Lahavdil, like the person you idolize the most. Well, let's say it's a world leader. Let's say you're a Trumpy. Let's say you love Donald Trump so much. And Donald Trump, right, says like he becomes president, he calls you on the phone and just says, by the way, I have a special phone that I don't give this number out to anybody except for like one or two individuals. And I want you to have this number. And anytime you need me, right, but don't give it out to anybody. It's just for you. You call me when you want, and I want to be there for you. Right? It's like direct access. How can a person not feel like, would anybody feel lowly of themselves if that happened? Again, if you're a fan of him, but fill in the blank, whoever. Would somebody feel low about themselves if they had access to that opportunity? Of course not. They'd be like, whoa, what is it about me? That's amazing. Right? So too the Jewish people with God. God, Hashem, we don't have the monopoly on him. This is what's very unique about us, because nowadays you should know, it's coming back around. There was the blood libel of the chosen people. A lot of anti-Semites on social media, and a lot of anti-Semites, particularly on the right, which is very interesting, are bringing back the old blood libel of the Jewish supremacy trope. Meaning, the Jewish people think they're better than anybody. They like white supremacy. There's Jewish supremacy. It's the biggest threat to all the way. Here's the reality. If you want to talk about supremacy, in Islam and in Christianity, they all, as a basic fundamental belief, you're doing it wrong if you're not serving them in the way that they should be served. If you reject Jesus, you don't go to heaven, point blank. If you reject Muhammad as the prophet and Allah, you are not going to heaven, right? So therefore, it's my way or the highway. When you talk about supremacy, what does that mean? I mean, my way or the highway sounds pretty supremacy-y to me. It's not that way with the Jewish people. We don't have the monopoly on God. God is a God to all people. And while the Jewish person has the potential to connect with Hashem more than a non-Jew, that's not always the case. There can be non-Jews who are way more connected to God than a Jew is. We just have the potential for it more. That's number one. You don't have to be Jewish to go to heaven. And at the end of the day, if a person wants to tap into that potential and join the chosen nation, then they are welcome to do so. That the door is not closed for anybody. So when you get into the supremacy argument, those are some points to understand and recognize what's unique about the Jewish people. We have the potential, is ultimately my point, we have the potential to be closer to God than any other nation in the world. That is our potential, and the Torah was the tool, was that avenue, was the bridge to be able to accomplish that. I know very well that you're aware of the purity of heart and mind that you possess when you learn Torah, or of the degree of Hashem's closeness to you, that he figuratively sits across from you and learns with you. If you would feel deep down, and here, this is an important line, if you would feel deep down that when you make a request on your own behalf or the behalf of your parents, or when you're davening and talking to Hashem, be it for their financial success or anything you might be asking for, that you're pleading as a son pleads to their father. If you would know that God answers you as a loving father answers a beloved response to his beloved son, then every fiber of your being would resonate and the joy would reach the depths of your soul. That last line, I want to repeat it again. Every fiber of your being would resonate and the joy would reach the depths of your soul. If we really, truly understood what it meant to be in devekis with Hashem, in connection and attachment with Hashem, then every single fiber of our being, of our soul, it would resonate, it would light up if we really understood that that's the process. By analogy, like, as a father asks belovingly to a son, there's certain times where Sarah and I, where, Yitzi will come and say just the cutest thing or the sweetest thing, or like, I love you guys so much. And like our hearts melt and we like look at each other and just go, anything you want, right? Because when a father comes, when a child comes to their parent in that context with love and connection, You can't say no. You can't say no to your kid at that moment. So imagine the children of Hashem, that when a person is in that state and they work to get to a place where they can talk to God and make a request on behalf of other people, or they can cry out to Hashem as if you have that closeness, and you realize that it's not just a game. It's not just like, oh, it's transactional. Like if I pray for this, hopefully God will give it to me, but it's real, a real connection. Then your soul will dance. You ever walk into and you see somebody like in prayer and they're just smiling ear to ear and they're in another planet. They're locked in beyond, right? Or like you see them like at a certain spiritual moment. They're just not with us anymore. Their soul is like floating on high. They're in such a state of Vegas with Hashem. That's what we can achieve. That's what we can absolutely achieve. And it comes, he's talking about it's rationally understanding, right? It's getting to a place where we understand what we're doing in these moments. When we're connecting with Hashem, what that means, what that implies, and what we're experiencing. That can bring a person to this thing, as he says, that every fiber of your being would resonate and every joy would reach the depths of your soul.
Not just rationally, because like for example, like we're talking about it now, and like we both understand it and agree, and like yeah, this is true. Like Hashem's like with me, whatever. But then there's like times where you go into tefillah and it's not like that. I
Right,
think
right.
it's
No, that's a whole nother thing. It's not that every feeler you have is going to be that way. What I'm talking about is the difference between like when you take the blindfolds off at the kotel, right? I'm crying, they're crying, everyone's crying. Some people are crying just
party.
because they're thinking about something sad that happened in their life. Some people are crying because they don't know everyone else is crying, so I'm crying too. I feel like this moment is a moment to cry, but I don't know why, so I'm just doing it. And there are other people who, if you know what we're discussing, if you know that and you're sitting there and you're like, I'm looking and I'm seeing people have a connection with Hashem for the first time, and I'm sitting there and I'm in a state of connection myself. The tears might look the same, but it's a whole nother experience. Somebody who's experiencing that is in another dimension of connection. And that's what I'm talking about, is if you understand what's happening when you're going through that state of connection, your experience is just totally different. And
That
that's
was like in the like cave and spot. Like I was looking around, I was like, because like I've done like things like that before, and I was like there's like all these kids have never like sat down and just like sing. Like I was like,
it hits differently. It's
yeah,
hard to
it's like
it's not
I
something
was
you
like,
can
oh,
explain to other people.
nachas moment.
Yeah. And it's not something you can explain to another person as well. And that's, ultimately what we try to do is try to tear off the klippus, right? And try to get
The panemius.
there you go, try to get it out there. So now he takes a little bit of a turn, and this we'll stop after this paragraph here. But he right, but he says like this, but because you don't feel these things, and this line is, if there's ever a line worth underlying here, because you regard yourself as just another child, which is the crux of the problem for American Jewry. I could speak to American Jewry. I don't know about the rest of the world. I'm sure it's an issue as well. Because you don't see these things, you don't realize what we just said, and you regard yourself as just another child. You're just like everybody else, no different than others. You don't find happiness in the things that you have every right to feel happy about. What's more, this lack of happiness sometimes diminishes your desire to learn Hashem's Torah to prevent you from being able to hear his message. We'll stop here, but I want to explain to you what this last little piece meant. Because this little piece, I always suggest draw the little diagram over here. And I'm going to give you the equation as to what is wrong, the crux of the problem with American Jewry. American Jewry, but specifically American teenagers. It is a vicious cycle. I call it the vicious triangle, because it's a circle, but you can make it a circle, but there's 3 points here. He's breaking it down into 3 points. Point number 1 is the point that he's making is, you are so unbelievably special for being a Jew. The opportunity that you have in front of you is unbelievable. And yet, because you don't realize that, because you don't, in short, realize how special it is to be Jewish, what it means to be a Jew, your opportunity and your chelek that you were given, because you're disconnected with that, what that leads to, he says, you don't find happiness in the things that you have every right to be happy about. What specifically? Avodas Hashem. God created the world in the first parak of Mesilas Yesharim. The Ramchal highlights the fact that Hashem created this world to give us pleasure. It's literally why he created this world. And the greatest pleasure that a person can experience in life is a connection to Hashem. So he gives us all these commandments, which are basically opportunities for us to be able to have pleasure in connecting with Hashem. and you don't enjoy them. In fact, you look at them as a burden. People look at avodas Hashem, service to God, as a burden. How? If those things were designed to give you pleasure and elevate your experience and the quality of your life, how could that not be the experience that you're having? What he's saying is that the reason you're not enjoying them is because you don't think of yourself as a Jew, because you think of yourself as anybody else. So it starts off with not realizing what it means to be Jewish and how special you are, leads to you not being able to have pleasure and happiness in the things that you have every right to be. We all have access to Shabbat once a week. And if Shabbat is not the day that you're looking forward to 6 days a week, and you can't wait for it to come, and when it comes, you feel like you're on cloud nine and a different experience on a different level, then there's something off, there's something broken, there's something wrong about it. It needs to be revisited. What comes next is that what's more, this lack of happiness diminishes your desire to learn Hashem's Torah and prevents you from being able to hear his message. That leads to you not having a want or an interest in avodas Hashem, in Jewish practice, in connecting with Hashem, in learning his Torah. And then what does that result? It brings us right back to the beginning, because if a person doesn't do that, then they're never going to feel what it is to be a Jew. They're never going to understand what it is to be a Jew. And that cycle, that endless triangle of doom, is going to continue over and over and over and over again until that cycle is broken. Again, just as an overview, how that works, right? You don't realize what it means to be Jewish, and you don't feel special for being a Jew. That leads to you not taking pleasure in everything you have every right to feel pleasure about, which is Jewish practice. All the opportunities Hashem gave us. And that will diminish our desire to want to engage and be involved in learning Hashem's Torah. And when we don't engage in learning Hashem's Torah and following any sort of mitzvahs, we're never going to be able to feel special and understand really what it means to be a Jew. We'll be color war Jews. Yay, Jewish pride, but having no token to it whatsoever.
They did.
Yeah.
We went to UM like with Hillel for like a college something blah 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 boring, and they had like alumni from our school come and like speak to. They did like a like Jewish life on campus like panel, and like the girls were like talking whatever, and the girl goes, yeah, like one of the girls was saying like, yeah, like I feel like so like comfortable wearing like my Jewish star whatever. When I go into, she's like this school is like basically halal. Continue to go into class, you'll see like 5 chai necklaces, and she like what she was saying basically like being Jewish is like what necklace you wear. And I was like, and like a girl after comes out, she's like, wow, I feel like so good about applying here now. Like there's such strong Jewish life. And I was like,
It's not a nebuch when a person gets attacked
like actually never like it
by
wasn't like
by an
and I said
anti-Semite, and
something.
they go,
Like,
because you're a Jew, and you're like, it just becomes color war. Like,
oh
nebuch.
no.
You don't know what you live for, what you stand for, what the Jewish people represent in this world.
Yeah.
If your Judaism is relegated to a necklace, again, good for you where you're holding, but like you gotta move forward.
Yeah.
You
And I
know?
said something to Liat about it, how like it was that ever, and like another girl heard me, she goes, don't judge people for like how religious they want to be. I was like, no, like that's not what I'm saying. Like I'm not, it's just like
Right. No, we
that
don't
I
we don't
wasn't gonna go into a whole sheer
we don't highlight individuals, but we can talk about concepts. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Everything is about context where a person is holding, and yeah, we can't judge where a person is holding, but the concept of a
Yeah,
person's
the
Judaism
concept
being
of necklace.
relegated to a necklace is nebuch. That's very sad on its
So
face.
never.
Nebuch, pathetic. I don't know how it's you. So let me ask you a question. In that triangle of doom, that horrific triangle, which I think describes
Too
American Jewish
scary.
teenagers, that is your school in a nutshell, by the way.
Oh, I'll write that. Hello in a nutshell.
I mean, think about it, right? Even a kid came to me yesterday at La Casa. He comes over to me. He's just like, I know all this stuff. I learned all this stuff. How come it doesn't why doesn't it change me? Why doesn't it
That's
affect
so
me? And it's like,
sad. Oh,
it comes down to it. You have kids who will sit in Jewish classes for every year, and they still don't have any connection or know what it means. So if you were to look at that horrible triangle, where can you break that cycle? Where do you think you can change that cycle?
I
At
think
which point?
you have to start with the special, like realizing your potential, no?
Exactly.
Like if
And
I don't
by the
if
way,
you realize it, why am I
the
yeah.
philosophy, if you want to know what TJJ is in a nutshell, TJJ is meant to go and attack that top element. It's about walking away from the summer, knowing what it means to be a Jew, feeling how lucky and special we are, but understanding why, understanding exactly what that means. Because if you break that, then why are some people eager to engage in Torah mitzvahs, Judaism? because now they can take pleasure in something that they might have looked at as a burden or didn't really understand. But when you understand how unique and special and the opportunity you have in front of you, it changes your engagement in that, and that will lead to fixing, right? It'll lead your desire to continue to, again, if it's done in the right and healthy way, your desire to want to engage more in not only Torah, but Judaism and Dvekus with Hashem, and that ultimately will breed about a person feeling that they're special and unique, one of God's chosen holy children. So.
Cool.
All right, we'll continue the chapter. So that's the premise. Chapter 1 is basically an attempt to instill authentic, real Jewish pride into young Jews wherever they may be. And Mir Hashem, we will not continue next week. Next week I will be in Israel, in Yerushalayim.
Lucky ducky.
Wedding, yes, Baruch Hashem. So we'll pick it up the week after Mir Hashem with some of
Okay.
my friends. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yippee!
All right.
Thank you, Avi.